Actually, I'm going through a lot with POA&Ms right now, and typically at a lot of the jobs that are paying me large amount sums of money to do this, to do my work, to do GRC work, it's POA&Ms is the thing that is the most challenging. And so another person asked me, how do I reduce the POA&M, plan of action and milestone resubmission? I can answer both of these in a very comprehensive way. So let me start off by saying that if you are interested in knowing more about this, if you want to know more and go more in depth about this, I have a course that walks you through everything you need to know about plan of action and milestones, risk management framework, NIST 800. And if you go to convocourses.com, that's where you'll find it. Here it is right here. If you go to this site right here, there's going to be some free downloadable templates that I'm going to actually walk you through in this tutorial, where we're going to deep dive into just POA&Ms and the content of POA&Ms. But if you go to all courses here, once you get to Convo Courses, you'll see books, you'll see downloadables, free stuff, you'll see free introductions, you'll see audiobooks, you'll see all kinds of courses. And one of my most popular courses happens to be NIST 800 Foundations. Like this right here is walking you through, if you happen to be a cybersecurity person who's in a GRC position for the government, this is going to tell you how to go through all the process that you need to do a risk management framework, which is NIST 837. This is something I've been doing so long, I could really speak on this all day long off the top of my head. So I decided to make a course about it. It is brutal. It is very long. It's about 8 hours of content, and I add to it every now and then. And it's downloadables and books and all kinds of stuff in there. So if you're interested in it, here it is right here. It's on Combo Courses, called Information System Security Officer Foundations. And another one that I have, it goes into security controls and the families and what kind of documents you have to do in those families. And that one is pretty valuable, because one of the biggest questions that I get asked is interpretation of different security controls. Once you get really deep into this, you're having to interpret different controls. That's how you know you're doing this 800 and Information System Security Officer work. And that one's this one right here. So this one's very comprehensive. This one's even longer than the first one. It is brutal, and I'm always adding stuff to this one right here, because I'm trying to cover most of the families and the controls. So there you have it right there. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on POA&Ms. And just out of all the places that I've gone to, plan of action and milestones has been the most challenging. And just let me just explain what that is. So plan of action and milestone is organizations, you're supposed to fix computers, right? You're supposed to, we call it remediation, or fix the patching, the vulnerabilities that happen on Microsoft operating systems, on Linux operating systems, on Mac operating systems, you name it. And even applications like Adobe or Java or Oracle or whatever, name your favorite product or vendor, they're going to have vulnerabilities. So you're supposed to have a certain period of time that you cover those vulnerabilities. For example, if you had a vulnerability on Microsoft operating system where the username and password, they found some sort of error where you can bypass the username and password, right? That's a huge vulnerability. That's a critical finding. So what will happen is Microsoft they'll introduce and they will create a patch to fix that issue. This happens all the time. You can't get everything right the first time. Applications are pretty much iterative, to where they're always fixing and patching and making them better and better and better and improving them and things like that. And so they'll make the patch, and then your organization, if you've implemented this operating system Microsoft on 1,000 different systems, now you got to go and take that patch that Microsoft released and push those out everywhere. Well, sometimes there's times when you can't push that patch out. There'll be times when you know that if you push this patch out, it's going to break what you guys have. And in these cases, you have to have something, you have to have a plan to go forward. What is your plan? If you cannot fix this critical finding within 7 days, a week, 2 weeks, or whatever, how are you going to fix those remaining 500 systems that you have that you couldn't fix with a push, because it's going to break a bunch of systems? And there's a lot of different reasons why a system will break. Sometimes you have a mission application that's developed specifically for a certain version of Windows 2010, and now they're trying to go to 2011, and it's like we can't, because if we go to 11, it's going to break it. So now you're in a situation where you pretty much have to stick with that old system with all those vulnerabilities. And in that case, you have to do what's called a plan of action in a milestone. And what that means is you have to have a plan to go forward to how to fix that. And the milestones are like, okay, first we're going to do this. In step 1, step 2, we're going to do this. And step 3, we're going to do this. Those are the milestones. We're going to do step 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to do them in this time frame. In the first month, we're going to do it here, and then 3 months later, we should have this part fixed. Those are your milestones. And so, and those are your milestones to take action. And thus the name, plan of action and milestone. Now, if you're interested in getting this, here's how you can get this for free. This is just a template. Organizations usually have their own plan. They have their own template for plan of action and milestones. But if you don't have one, or if you want to learn more and you want to know what kinds of things you can put in there, you can actually right now go into my course on going to Convocourses and click this right here. We're going to go ahead and download this group of templates. It's policies, it's procedures, all that kind of stuff. And if you want to get the book to go along with that, you can. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and log in and grab this. And this is exactly how you do it. You can log in with your Facebook account or your Google account or whatever the case may be, or you can make a new account. It's up to you by using your email. But I'm going to go ahead and log in with my own personal account here and download this. Here we go. Actually, I already have it here. And what you'll have once you do download this template is a walkthrough, a complete walkthrough of everything that's in the downloadable zip file that you have here. And then, of course, the downloadable. Let's just go ahead and download it. There it is right there. You'll get this zip. And this zip has not just plan of action and milestone, but as you can see, it has a lot of stuff in there. They're handpicked by myself that has all the appropriate data that you need for plan of action and milestones, for system security plans. And it kind of is a good way to learn if you've never done this before. So it's a great group of templates. And some of the stuff I actually grabbed from government sites. Obviously, these are publicly available. Like, I didn't get this from, inside these are not classified materials. So let's go ahead and grab a plan of action and milestone. There's a couple different iterations of the plan of action milestones. I'm going to try to grab my favorite one. So just bear with me here. I'm having some issues. Okay, there it is right there. So here's a plan of action milestone template. And what I'm going to do is walk you guys through the content that you should have in there. And then I'll give you some tips on this. So first and foremost, plan of action and milestones are they're not fun to deal with. And the reason why is because typically, if you can't fix something within a certain period of time, there's some kind of an issue going on with that system. And what I mean to say is there's some sort of root cause that's making it so you can't upgrade it. Either and some of the most common ones, to be honest with you, is that the organization just doesn't have the time to do it. They don't have the bodies to do it. They don't have they have a lack of knowledge on and they don't have usually don't have the manpower to do it. Like you just don't have the time frame to do it, to actually go. If you had enough people to actually go and fix those systems, those 500 remaining systems, you could go ahead and do it. But sometimes you just don't have it. But sometimes it's more complex than that. It's more about you can do it. You have the skill set to do it, but your organization has an old system that it has to remain in place. Because if you were to upgrade that system, it's going to actually break something. So in those cases, you have to put it off until you have some other fix action. So it's usually a very complex issue. Manpower issues are very complex issues because you have to prioritize what is more important than these other 500 systems. And a lot of times you have a ton of other stuff that has to come first before these 500 systems that you have remaining. So that's one of the big problems. Another one is old legacy systems that are mission critical, that are business essential, that if you try to quote unquote fix it, it's going to break everything. And that's gonna, cause all kinds of problems. So those are the main two, but there's other issues too. Sometimes if you actually patch this thing when you're supposed to, it'll break something else. Like this system would be fine, but something else can't connect to what you're trying to quote unquote fix. So there's a lot of reasons why you would have to put it off and have a plan of action to fix it later. And that's pretty much what a POA&M is. And one of the challenges with a POA&M is that there's a couple things. Number one, it's highly visible. Whenever you do a plan of action, a milestone in the federal government, everybody can see it. It's highly visible. It's the technical people can see it. The upper management people can see it. Everybody, upper management, the CIO and the CISO, everybody is seeing that POA&M. And once everybody is seeing it, there's this fire where people's hair is on fire, right? If they have hair. They're going out and trying to say, hey, what's going on with this POA&M? What's going on with this POA&M? What's going on? And it's just for a cybersecurity person, for a GRC information system security person, it's just like, dude, we have so many other things going on. Like this POA&M, yes, we have to fix this, but we've got 10 other fires going on. So that's one of the main things. It's highly visible. Another thing that's irritating about POA&Ms is that it's usually a complex issue. Like we're saying, it's something we can't fix right now because we don't have the manpower. Something we can't fix because if we fix it here, it's going to make it so that people can't get in. There's always some sort of major issue with a plan of action and milestone. So it's just, those are two of the main issues with plan of action and milestones that I've seen at multiple organizations, regardless of what you call it. That's another thing. They're called different things at other organizations, remediation plans or whatever. There's all kinds of other plans in the public and private sector, but all industries who are worth their salt have this stuff. Now, let me walk you through what this usually has. Now, whether you are using EMAS or you are using Exacta or some variant of Archer, or if you're using whatever you're using, it's going to have these elements that I'm going to show you that we're going to walk through. So, and like I said before, if you want to see where I download this stuff from, go to the beginning of this video and I'll show you exactly where to download it for free from my site. And it'll, I actually have a video to walk you through all the stuff I'm doing right now. So let's just go through this. So number one, a plan of action and milestone. Let's hit enable here. A plan of action and milestone is going to always have what system it pertains to. You're going to have who, what, when, where, and why of what is going on with that particular set, those particular security controls. And that's another thing. It's very specific to a security control. It's going to be attached to a specific security control on a specific number of systems. And when you do that, the more accurate you can be with the plan of action and milestone, the less nebulous it is, the more specific it is, then the less you'll have these recurring plan of action and milestones. Like the less you'll have to redo. You have to have these zombie plan of action and milestones, for lack of a better word, where you have to bring this one back to life and then, resurrect it and it's walking around trying to eat brains. You know what I'm saying? But this will make more sense as I explain this to you. Okay. So first of all, we got to do the who, what, when, where, and why. So what is this? Let's say it was system B. That's the name of the system. That's the name of the system. And then the organization also can be important. Org 1, because sometimes you have different departments or whatever. You have to be very specific on the plan of action and milestone, because they might have you might have instances of the same system within other organizations, especially with virtualization and things like that going on. So now we've got to have the date. Very important. When did we start this thing? The date of the plan of action and milestone, the date last updated, the date of original POA&M. So we need all those dates. We need all the dates. So the date of this POA&M. So we'll put 3 dates. We'll put date of POA&M. The first date, we'll just say that the date of POA&M is today. We'll say it's 2019, 2023, or whatever date it is, right? And then we'll say Oh, this field doesn't have dates in it. We'll just say 19. And then it's the 19th on a 23rd. I don't know if this field might not be allow us to do it, but let's just see if it will. Okay, I'll put today's date, which is 2/19. All right. So the other date it's asking for is we'll leave all the other dates blank, but the point is date of the last update, date of the original POA&M. Let's say all those dates are the same because we're doing this for the first time. So the 19th today. All right, so the next thing we got to do is the name of the ISSM. Now, there's different names for the ISSM. This is the Information System Security Manager. It could be the manager. It could be the ISSO, whoever is managing this thing. Their name and phone number, their contact information needs to go in this field. Very important. That's another thing that's important about the Plan of Action Milestone is the who. Who is responsible for this? Who are the stakeholders? You might need to put more than one name in here. Who is going to be the person to track this thing down? That's the person you want to put on this plan of action and milestone. It may not be you. It may be somebody else. It might be a system administrator. It might be whoever is going to be the person that everyone talks to about this thing. Then that's the name. Normally, it's going to be something like an ISO, an information security officer, or a GRC policy person, or it could even be a project manager. It could be any one of those. Okay, information system type. If you have different information systems, then you would want to put the type or the unique ID identifier for that system. Some systems will have like a number, 8534 or whatever it is, that a nomenclature that is unique to that specific system, or have the GSS that specifies that it's a GSS general support system, and then the numbers on the system is 1115. Or whatever, so that identifies a specific system that we're talking about here, or you can just put the system name there. Okay, so now we've identified who is responsible for this. We'll just say Bruce Brown, and then we'll put the email, his email and his number, his phone number. We have a contact information. We have what system it is, the name of the system attached to the organization. And we have the time frame that system was created, that plan of action and milestone was created and or updated. Now let's get into the guts of this thing. So all of these fields we've got to get nailed. We got to nail this down. If we don't nail this part down, then what'll happen is we'll have a zombie. We'll have a pile with that, and that's just something I just made up. Like, they don't call it a zombie, but that is exactly what happens. Is one of the issues that you have in many organizations. I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this in private sector, public sector. I've done it across different federal agencies, different federal departments, and I could tell you it's the same problem that keeps happening. And I understand why. And it's in the private sector as well. What happens with plan of action and milestones is they stick around sometimes because the organization wasn't specific with what was supposed to happen. Now, if they're specific and they're actually tracking it, you can close out the POA&M on time. But what happens if it's not specific? It's not specific to different actual systems. Like, you don't list every system that this actual plan of action milestone pertains to. Then it's going to last forever. You can never close it. And if you're not tracking it, and it's one thing to actually be specific about it and say, okay, these systems are here, and this person's going to be in charge of it, and here are the weaknesses, and here's the justifications. But if nobody is tracking it and taking action on those plan of action and milestones, then it's also going to last forever. It's just going to stay there, and because nobody's checking it on a regular basis. And that's also something that happens quite often, because you just, as a cybersecurity person, you have all these things going on. You have all these priorities going, and sometimes these plan of action milestones just become like forgotten, and they just linger. And and the problem with that is when you have an assessment or something, people are like, hey, well, what is this? At some point, somebody else who's going to come in there and say, well, what is this? What is this thing that you guys have going on? What's going on with this? Have you guys fixed this? And people are going to be like, I'll get back to you on that. I don't know, because it's been there for 2 years or whatever. So that happens quite a bit. And that's usually happens when they're not specific about what's going on, or people aren't tracking it on a regular basis. That's kind of what happens. Now, let's get into this. One of the first things you need to have is an identifier. You got to identify an item identifier is going to be a unique, I believe this is where you're going to put it. Yeah, you're going to have a unique identifier for that plan of action or milestone. Now, regardless of what system you're on, it needs to have a unique identifier, because a lot of times if you have 1,000 Windows systems with, 1,000 different controls, it's very easily to get lost. It's very easy to get these things lost. So you've got to have an identifier for every single weakness. It's the best way to do it, especially if you have multiple weaknesses across multiple different systems. So let's call this identifier system. And this is done different ways for different organizations. So, but they'll have usually some kind of identifier that identifies that specific plan of action and milestone, and then the weakness. It's very important to have one plan of action, one weakness per plan of action and milestone. And I know how that sounds, because sometimes you'll have multiple weaknesses on a million systems, but the reason why is because if you want to close these things, if you have 15 different weaknesses that you're identifying with one plan of action and milestone, it's going to be very difficult to close it out, because you can't close the POA&M until you fix all the weaknesses. So either you're going to have one system with all the weaknesses and you're going to fix all the systems, all the weaknesses on that one system, or the reverse. You'll have one weakness with one or 15 systems, right? It's got to be a one to many or a many to one. It can't be a many. It's not a good idea to have a many to many, meaning many systems with many different weaknesses. Not a good idea, because it's too hard to close it. Okay, so one weakness for multiple systems is what we're going to do. So the weakness is, let's say the deficiency is we have to do we haven't done a risk assessment. Risk assessment needed. Because maybe we identified that this system hasn't had a scan, hasn't been properly assessed in quite a long time. Maybe since the time that it was created, it's never been assessed. And then we discovered that it hasn't been assessed in quite a long time. So we're going to say it's a risk assessment that's needed. And then that's RA. We're going to connect that to a specific control. That's another thing. So I'm going to describe a couple things here. I think that's RA2. So the weakness, here's the thing about the weaknesses. So the weaknesses don't have to be just technical. In other words, like you ran a scan and you found I don't know, the username password is weak, right? That's a very technical control that you can find with scanner tools or whatever, and it's very super technical. Like you got to go into the system and actually literally change the configuration of the weakness, make it more difficult or make the password more complex or whatever, right? But you can also have weaknesses that are not technical. You can have them so that it's based on the process, like we're doing here. The process is they haven't had a risk assessment and it's needed. That's the deficiency. You can also have them to where it could be a physical issue, like maybe it's the place that you have is not secure. Too many people have a way to get into that facility, or maybe the window doesn't have a alarm system on it. So it can be a physical control weakness. It can be a documentation weakness. It can be a process weakness, or it can be, of course, a technical weakness. But we've got to specify that. And the details, we want to get straight to the point with the details, but sometimes we have to explain. Let me see if there's a place where we can actually explain the weakness in greater detail. Identified by, usually there's a place where we can actually explain it. So I don't see it here. So what we're going to do is we're going to explain the weakness right in here. So we're going to say needed, risk assessment needed. System has not had a risk impact, let's say if the organization needs, everybody has to have a risk impact assessment, and this one did not have one for whatever, and it's a server. It's 15 servers, and the system has to have this scan, and then it has to have a report or whatever. Report is due last quarter. Was due last quarter. Okay, so there we go. We've described it, and we're gonna go ahead and let me just do word wrap on that. Okay, point of contact is gonna be James Ridley. We put a point of contact. It's always got to have somebody that you can reach back and talk to, and maybe James Ridley is the risk assessment guy, and he's the lead of the risk assessment team or something like that, and they're the ones who do the reports or whatever, right? So we've identified the ism, and now we've identified the person that you have to talk to about this actual plan of action and this specific plan of action milestone. Let's keep more specific with this one. This one's going to be item identifier is going to be we're going to call it POA&M system B _1123, because system, and the thinking is it has to be a unique identifier, and system B might have 15 different plan of action milestones, and we have to be able to identify that specific plan of action milestone with that specific system with that specific weakness. So it has to be very unique. Okay, resource. See, the very more specific we are, the better, the more we can get rid of this particular weakness. And that's another thing. Let's go back to deficiency, weakness deficiencies, and let's say that let's list the systems out. We'll say systems include, and we'll say it's 10.22.55.88888, just so we don't get, I know that's not an IP that exists, but I'm just making one that doesn't exist on purpose. So some people are not like, hey, Bruce works for our department, he's giving out our IP addresses. Trust, I'm not doing nothing like that. So 99999. So we've identified a range of IPs that, let's say that there's 15 systems and they're all servers in that range of IPs or whatever. And normally you would actually list them out by, like, you can list them out by either IP, or you can list them out by system name, or whatever the case may be. But every system that has this deficiency should be listed for that one weakness, so that we don't have recurring POAMs, or the same POAM doesn't keep coming up for that. If it is something that comes up again, it's a different POAM with a different unique identifier, so because that does happen, but we don't want the same POAM resurfacing, right? That's kind of the name of the game. All right, so resources I required. So what we need is the system scan team, teams. That's one resource. We need, let's say, Nessus. Maybe that's what the Nessus, and we need Qualys or something. I don't know. Whatever tools that they use for that scanning. And then the scheduled date. This is very, very important. So this is the whole purpose of this plan of action milestone, is the when. When and who's going to do it and what and the why, everything. But when is super important. Scheduled completion date. We're going to say we want this done by 6/5/2023, right? So that's the scheduled date that we want it done. Milestones with the completion dates. Now, milestones, thus the name, plan of action and milestones. Like, this is where we say, okay, on this date we're going to do this. On this date we're going to do this. Let me just give you an example. So we said that it's supposed to be done by 6/5/2023. So that means that, let's say by February 28th, this POAM is going to have, so I said February 28, 2023, by this time, we're going to reach out to scan team with details. And let's say the ISO does this. ISO, we'll just put ISO there. So then the next thing we want to do, let's say the next thing in the milestones is going to be so they meet them, and then we give them time to maybe they meet 2 or 3 times, and then let's say by April the 15th, we're going on 2023 or whatever the year is, we're going to conduct scan discovery. I'm just making stuff up at this point. Maybe they have to run a discovery to make sure that all the systems are online, to make sure that all the systems that we're going to scan are within scope, or whatever they have to do. So there's some sort of scan discovery they got to do, and they have time to do that, because we're going to say that they have, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks to do that. So let's say that by 4/1 of 2023, we want to identify and fix, remediate, if I can spell right, remediate systems. And then when that's done, we're going to conduct a rescan to make sure that those systems have been remediated. So we've discovered the systems, we identified and remediated the systems, and now by, let's say, 5th of Cinco de Mayo, we're going to say 2023, we're going to rescan systems. We're going to rescan systems. And the reason why we do this, because we want to make sure that our fix action worked. And then you always want to give yourself a little bit more time. So if it's, this is a big one. This is kind of like in Star Trek, Scotty, they always say, Scotty, when are the engines going to be fixed? And he's always like, it's going to take me, Captain, it's going to take me 15 years. He always asks for more because in engineering, that's how it is. Like nothing ever works the way you think it does. And you always want to manage the leadership's expectations. So you always want to give yourself way more time than what you need. So let's say, let's finish this out. Let's say by 5, we did a rescan, and we're going to double check everything. And let's say that's it. We're done. So by the 5th of June, it's complete. But we gave ourselves a little bit more time with that. See how we did that? We gave ourselves a little bit more time in there so that if there's something that happens, we can always come back and go back and rescan or fix things. So we gave ourselves almost a month to go ahead and fix that stuff. Changes to milestones. Like if there's any changes whatsoever, then we would put the status of those changes of what's going on. The status is over here, but there's any changes to the milestone, you would annotate them over here. So let me give you an example. So let's say the change is we needed more time. So we said requested a extension of due date to, let's say, we would ask for another month, 7/7/2024, whatever the date is, I don't know. So 2023. Okay, so there we go. Now let's go to the next section. So let's talk about all the sections here. So we talked about the identifier, unique identifier, super important, because you might have multiple weaknesses on multiple systems, and you need to identify a specific POA&M to that specific system with a specific weakness, and that's why the unique identifier for every POA&M is very important. Then we identified the actual weakness. We spelled out and explained in simple words what the weakness and deficiency is. We attach that to a security control, a NIST 853 security control. We have a POC. So who do we talk to? We're going to talk to James Ridley when we have to go back and ask, hey, what's the scan team doing? Or when are you guys going to get this done? Or did you guys already meet that milestone? And then another thing, resources required. We already know it's the scan team's job, and they're going to use Qualys as the tool. And then we're going to identify the actual schedule that is needed. Like we want this done by the 5th of June of this year. And then we have milestones. We broke down all the steps that it's going to take to actually get this done. And we have to check back with this. This is where project managers are super important, because you have to have several meetings. This is another thing that's very irritating about plan of action and milestones is that you got to have multiple meetings. I already told you, like, one of the things about plan of action and milestones that's very annoying is that they usually have some complex issue and it's not easy to fix. It's not easy fix, right? If it was easy, it'd be vulnerability management could just magically wave their wand and they fix it and we're done. But plan of action milestones not like that. They usually have some complex issue that they can't just fix it like that. Another thing is that everybody sees these plan of action milestones. Everybody and their grandma sees it. Like, you got the freaking president of the United States and Congress. Sometimes literally Congress sees plan of action and milestones. Do they do anything about it? Hell no, but they can see it. So there's systems that they can see the plan of action and milestone. Why isn't this fixed? Congress has mandated that this thing be fixed. It goes pretty high. The CEO sees it. Your CISO sees it. Other people, other departments see the plan of action and milestone. It's very visible, which makes it pretty political because people are like, hey, what's going on? What's happening here? Why isn't this thing done yet? And the other thing is that probably the thing I hate the most about plan of action and milestone is that you got to have so many damn meetings. Every plan of action and milestone has to have at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 15,000 meetings. Like, you're not going to have too many plan of action milestones with 0 meetings. Unless it's already supposed to be closed, then you can close it. But typically, you got to chase them down. You got to talk to everybody and their grandma to get it fixed. It's just so much easier to just fix it than to have this zombie walking around eating people's brains, sucking up people's time and energy. I hate plan of action and milestones, but that's what people pay me for. So let's get back into this. And I see you guys' questions here, and I'll get to that in a second. Let me just get through this. We're almost done here. So we covered the actual milestones, when the changes to the milestone. If there's any kind of request to change or something that happened where we have to switch out different milestones, that happens all the time. You have to go ahead and fix that. Weaknesses and deficiencies identified by what? Like, how do we find this thing out? So there's a lot of different ways you can find these things out. And just to name a couple, is like if you had a recent inspection, if you had a recent vulnerability management scan, a vulnerability management scan would identify some of these things. That's one thing. If you had a recent inspection, like an IG or some third-party assessor came through from whatever department and they said, hey, we identified that you guys haven't scanned this thing in a while. Like, what's going on? Or, hey, we identified that you have weak passwords. You don't have MFA installed. You don't have, you name it, right? The audit logs are off. Like, what's going on with this? So those are all things that come up. Another one would be that you're just doing a routine. You're just a cybersecurity guy, and you're just kind of looking through the documentation. You're looking through, scanning, doing whatever, doing your job, and you find something. You're like, oh man, this is not. And you find this stuff all the time. This is not, it's not like you're suddenly hacked. Like, hacks happen, breaches happen often, but not as often as you're going to find a vulnerability within your organization, right? You're going to find because you're seeing the guts of what's going on. You're seeing broken processes, and you're seeing systems that are not logging correctly. So you see these things all the time. So they're just asking, how are you identifying it? How did you catch this thing? And you would just identify here. Let's just put something here. Let's just say that it was identified by IG inspection, IG 887. Inspection, whatever. Oh, okay. So now this one is risk level. Like, is it a low, a medium, or a high? So, and some organizations have critical, so it just depends on how they are labeling the impacts. But for the purposes of this, we're saying it's a low, a medium, or a high. Which one is it? So we're going to say that this was a medium because it hasn't had a scan in a while. And sometimes the low, medium, and high is going to be dependent on, let's say, if you had a scanner and the scanner identified it as a high, sometimes you would go ahead and adopt their risk level if applicable. But sometimes you would come up with something else based on your own risk assessment will determine whether it's a low risk or high or whatever. Estimated cost. This is just like, I usually calculate by hours. I calculate this by hours, like how many man hours is going to take to fix this thing. And if it takes, if I know it's going to take, I don't know, 15 days to fix it, and it's going to be 5 different people fixing it, then I will calculate some calculation where I'm calculating how many hours it's going to, those hours into what we're paying, the average salary of a person doing their job, right? It's just a guesstimation of how much it might cost to do it. But it could be very specific. It could be like, we need this part. This part we know costs $400,000. We know this costs $300. So you would put that number there plus the man hours that it took to install it or whatever. So for the purposes of getting through this, let's just put 4,500 based off of how many people are going to be working on that particular system and how many hours it's going to take to do it. And then the status right now is it's not started. We didn't start it yet because we haven't come to the first date of the milestone, not started. But it could be that it's in progress. It could be it's delayed. It could be whatever the status is there. And then the comments, of course, is going to be whatever, if there's additional things that you need to put in there for the next person to see is what you would put in there. So these are all the things that you would put in a plan of action and milestone. Just to wrap it up for you real quick, some of the things I hate about plan of action and milestones is that, like I said, it's a lot of meetings usually for one plan of action or milestone. It's usually a complex issue that you can't magically wave your wand and fix it. You're gonna have to dig and figure out why it's broken and meet with a whole bunch of people to fix it. And then also the visibility on it. These things are very, very visible, and they just don't go away. And you've got everybody and their mom talking about it. You have upper level managers asking you about the specific number of that POA&M, and they don't know the complexities of what's going on with that. So sometimes they'll get all in their feelings about stuff that they don't know. They don't really know what's going on. But we in the weeds know what's going on, and we know that, hey, I know you're worried about this one, but there's 15 other things that are way worse than this, by the way. But you're not going to say that in a meeting. So those are the things I hate about plan of action milestones. Are they necessary? Absolutely, absolutely necessary. What you don't want to do, some of the things you don't want to get wrapped up with on a plan of action milestones, some of the gotchas, is that if you don't make it specific, it'll last forever or it'll keep resurfacing and you can't close it. So you don't want to do that. You want to be as specific as possible. That's a gotcha. If you are not very specific with the who is going to close it and who's going to be involved with it, and the why of why you're even opening this in the first place and not fixing it, the justification of why you're not fixing it, and if you're not very specific with the who, what, when, where, and why, when is this thing going to be fixed, how is it going to be fixed, then it can just go on forever. Another thing, gotcha, is if you're not monitoring it, because a lot of times POA&Ms are already done, they're closed, but they're not monitoring it, and then it just kind of lasts forever. So those are kind of some of the gotchas with it. If you fix those things, if you answer those questions, then it's actually not as hard as I'm making it out to be. All right, so I'm gonna open this up to questions. I was actually trying to do a non-live, and I accidentally did a live, but I was gonna do a live and then schedule it later, but I guess we're doing a live here. So let me see. JP said the only issue with vulnerability scans is that they cover all controls. A scanner cannot check for deficiencies with process, procedures, policies, and or PE controls. The only issue with vulnerability scanners is that they don't cover all controls. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, just the nature, JP made a great, let me just post his question here. JP made a great point. Like, that's the one thing, when you get into cybersecurity, you tend to be like, you start to think, when I first started, I was very tools centric. And a lot of people who are not in this industry or who are out on the outskirts of it, like your project managers who are just coming in, or your IT, people who are new. What you don't realize is that the tools only get you so far, and that's why when people say, oh, AI is going to take over everything, it's like, no, not cybersecurity just yet, because you still have to do physical walkarounds. You still have to do physical checks. You still have to do wireless checks, like there's hidden rogue wireless APs that an AI is not going to, you're not going to just AI yourself into just doing vulnerability scans and then fixing everything, because that's not how, that's 5% of all security, or less. So like JP is saying, you've got policies and procedures that you got to walk through. You got to go through all of those. And those need to be within requirements of the federal government. Can AI help you with that? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can have an AI where you feed in all the documents and it just scans it and says, okay, is this FSMA compliant? Is this OMB compliant? Is this, hey, you're missing GDRP for this policy for privacy or whatever? You could have that, and those tools will be helpful. But at the end of the day, cybersecurity, I stand by this, is a human problem with human issues, and humans got to fix it. You know what I mean? AI is just a tool that's going to help us, a very great tool. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, you gotta do physical security, you gotta do environmental controls, all that stuff is wrapped around our security posture. So that's the way that we're gonna get from here to there as far as managing the risk for our systems. All right, thanks for that comment, JP. I appreciate that. Michael AI says, "What questions do you ask a future employer on an interview? What is your red flag?" What questions do you ask a future employer? What is your red flags? Um, uh, for me personally, I haven't done many interviews. I have done a couple, but for me, it's not necessarily a red flag, but it depends on the position. For me, I'm usually trying to whenever I do an interview, I'm looking for a person to fit into a certain role. If it's a cybersecurity role and I know our organization is dealing with very difficult customers, I might be a little bit more lenient on technical stuff. And I just want somebody who's very flexible. And so in that case, the red flag would be this person's not flexible. This person has a bit of is a little bit arrogant. And this person doesn't have patience. In that particular position, I want somebody who's emotionally intelligent, who has a lot of patience, who probably somebody who's older and more mature, or rather mature, not necessarily older, because young people can be very, very, very mature. But I just need, for somebody in that position, I'm going to need somebody more. For me, looking for a manager type, director type, I want somebody who's going to listen to people. If they're not willing to listen, they come in and they think they know everything. That is a red flag. And that's a red flag for me in every category. If they're trying to lie and bullshit their way through it, that's a red flag in any category. If I'm looking for a more technical person, I'm looking for somebody who's teachable, who's willing to learn, somebody who's creative, and somebody who listens. Yes, I need somebody who knows the basics. I need to know that they know what protocols are. I need to know that they know basic best practices in security. If they don't know anything, but they're teachable, that's something. If they don't know anything and they're willfully stupid, they're willfully ignorant, and they're bullshitting their way through it, then no, that's a red flag. So red flags for me would definitely be they think they know everything. They're not willing to learn. They're not flexible. They're arrogant. For me, I would not hire a person like that. They can go somewhere else. They can start their own company, but they ain't working for me. So I need somebody who's willing to learn. Even if they don't know anything, if they're coming in and they're excited and they want to learn stuff and they're willing to listen. And that kind of person is who I want on my team, because we're learning together, we're developing together, and we have a problem we're going to work on together as a team. And even if we have a hard challenge, we can get through it together. That's kind of how, for me personally, that's how I approach it. Let me see. Related to ISO or SCA role. Oh, okay. Just answered that one. Same. It's the same for SCA and ISO roles, Michael. For me personally, I really want people who are willing to learn and listen. And for me, that's a big thing. Navi says, "Hey Bruce, what will you do if you were semi-retired and only need to make a 40K per year?" What I would do is I'm getting close to this reality right here. So here's what I would do. I discovered a little hack. Check this out. And this is not really a hack. It's just like, it's just something I discovered on accident that I'm like, oh shit, this would work. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So let me show you my screen here. So I'm on LinkedIn. If you guys didn't know, I have a LinkedIn account. It's publicly available. Here it is right here. If you type in Bruce CISSP RMF, you'll find me. And I usually I don't really have any, if you join me, I'll join you back. So so what I would do is do this. I would say cybersecurity. What job would I actually look for? I would look for policy writer. Policy writer. Yeah, I would look for a RMF policy writer job. Check this out. Check this out. I'm going to look for jobs. And then I'm going to filter by part-time jobs. I only need 40K a year, right? So I'm just going to look for some part-time job type, part-time, 421. And I would just get one of these jobs, technical writer. Well, this is probably not specific to what I'm trying to do, but maybe Booz Allen Hamilton part-time job. It pays pretty good, but I'm just looking for a part-time job, part-time, mid-senior level. Yeah, something like this is what I would do. Something like this where I'm working from home, doing part-time work, writing. That's one of the things I would do. Another thing I would do, to be honest, Navi, is something like this. Something like where I'm doing content creation. I happen to really love content creation. I write books, I do videos, I do courses. I could pull down probably 40K just doing this and just travel anywhere in the world. So I would do a combination of part-time work. I would do a combination of doing this kind of stuff where I'm just teaching people and just making money off my books, like a little. It's not much, but it makes it making about, that combined with the part-time jobs over 40, to be honest with you. So that's what I would do. That'd be a good one. And then JP says tech jobs pay more than 40K. You're looking at more than probably about 60 or 80. Yeah, for sure. And I'm talking about JP. We're talking about doing a part-time. So but even part-time, you're right. It probably still would make about 60 because they pay pretty good. Yeah. So that's probably what I would do personally. And wouldn't be a bad gig. I mean, think about it. You can go to you could live in somewhere like Romania or like Romania. I don't know. Name a place. You could probably go to. I don't think there's too many places in Western Europe you could really go, but in the entire Southeast Asia would be good. You can go to Ghana, just about every country in Africa, with the exception of part of South Africa. You could live off of your money. If you're Thailand, oh my Lord, yeah, Thailand, exactly, man. Like you could live there and just be making like 40,000 a month, living like a damn king. Mexico, my Lord, Mexico would be huge. Not so much Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica's like it's Hawaii prices there, but Mexico, man, like living in Mexico. And people talk bad about some of these places, but it's just like any place in the United States. Like if you Detroit, parts of Detroit, not even all of Detroit, parts of Detroit, South. Okay, good example would be compare South side of Chicago to, I don't know, Kona Island, Kona in Hawaii. Kona, if you've ever been to Kona in Big Island, Hawaii, is amazing. It's beautiful. It's very wealthy. That place is amazing compared to the south side of Chicago. But people talk about Mexico like it's a monolith, like everything's bad, like everything south side of Chicago, everything is I don't know, name a bad place in Mexico. It's not all like that. Like there's some amazing, rich, wealthy places there that you or I could go there and live there for $40,000 a month, a year, $30,000 a year, and do really well. On average salary, writing part-time, writing the technical work, doing some half-ass technical work as long as the internet's good. Thailand as well. Thailand, Philippines, hell, I think even Bali, you'd be able to ball out over there, on $40,000 a year. I've been to Romania. I love it there. Is a little dirty though, but it's cool. Yeah, I've heard some stuff about it. Like I heard the prices are pretty cheap, and then recently I've been seeing some images from it. for obvious reasons because it's been on the news, which I'm not getting into. But I'm like, damn, like Romania looks pretty nice. You know, maybe I'll check that out one of these days. Thanks, Bruce. Working for myself is the way to go. Part-time is part-time with freedom. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's kind of which direction I'm kind of leaning lately because I'm in my old age. I got a few years to go though. Lonnie says, hey, Bruce, I'm a vulnerability assessment analyst working on STIGs and software releases. I'm about to take an ISO role. What is your advice? Okay, advice for an ISO. This is coming from somebody who literally has written the book on ISOs. My advice is to go buy my book. This book right here is going to walk you to, I feel stupid advertising my own stuff, but seriously, this is a dope book. This book right here is dope. It's going to walk you through one of the most challenging parts of being an ISO. You can find it on Barnes & Nobles. You can find it on Apple. You can find it on, I don't know, just anywhere you can go, and it's there. And or on my site, convocourses.com. And I have an audio book for it as well, read by the amazing Frank Block, by the way. So listen, my advice is this. Number one, let me show you some free resources before you go buying anything. Let me show you some free resources, and then I'll put you on some serious game. Free resources. So number one free resource is going to be this site right here. This is this is NIST. Let me see if I can show you guys the link here. This is the NIST Computer Security Resource Center, and it has all the controls. But some of the documents that you need to read, let me just type a couple of them in. NIST 837. This is source document for you. If you want source documentation, this is one of them right here. NIST 837. And then another one is NIST 853. Those are the two main ones. Those are the two. There's other ones like FIPS 199, FIPS 200, which are literally like 8 pages long. This is not a difficult read, by the way. You don't have to read the entire thing. Read it like a reference guide. The parts that you want to pay attention to. Let me see if I could take you to the parts that you really want. Okay. This is the part you really want to pay attention to right here. This is the index, right? So this index is breaking down these steps right here. These sections right here, this right here is what you want to pay attention to. Prepare, categorize, select, implement, assess, authorize. This tells you what you need to know. So if you want source, this is one of your best sources right here. Another document that you want to check out is NIST 853. 50-53. And let me show you why. This will make sense in a second here. So 853 has all the security controls. It's kind of intimidating at first because you realize that there's like over 1,000 controls in here, and this thing's like 500 pages long or something stupid. But you don't have to read the whole thing. This is just a reference guide. So just like in the other one, what you want to pay attention to is the sections here. See, these are all the control families, of which there's only about 20. And so what you need to really know is how the families work. You don't have to memorize every single security control, but you need to know how the families, what each family is all about. And so in this book right here, in my book, that's what I do. I focus on the families. I focus on the actual families and what you need to know as an ISO going through the families. This book right here, Risk Management Framework, NIST 853 controls. And the guide is just like this. It's just a guide. That's all it is. It's just a guide. And this is not a replacement for the actual NIST 853 controls, which has 1,000 plus controls. but it's just going to be a helpful way to interpret each family and then what you really need to know. I don't waste time with all the other stuff. And on the audio book, it kind of goes into stories and all kinds of stuff, but that's just to give you a reference point so you can understand what's going on in a way that's not academia. Like I'm trying to give you a practical way to understand each one of those. But those are the sources. So what advice do I have for an ISO? Okay, so number one, emotional intelligence is super important. I know what you hear on TikTok or on YouTube or on social media is like you got to hacking and like, like, oh, programming this and chat AI and all this kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, the most important piece of GRC and Information System Security Officer is emotional intelligence, because you're going to be dealing with difficult people, man. I'm just going to tell you that, like they don't know, people do not talk about this, but you're going to have to, as a cybersecurity person in general, you have to talk to people who are in their feelings because you told them about a security control that has to be implemented. And it's not coming from you. You're just the messenger, but they want to kill the messenger. So you just have to be patient, be kind, see things from their perspective, and don't take things personal. Don't take things personal. Remember, this is not your system. You are a messenger in the system. That's, you're relaying information. That's how I see it. And that's why I don't get too bent out of shape when I'm in a meeting with some freaking Karen who's tearing me apart live. Give me a public execution. You know what I'm saying? Because she's not executing me. They're going crazy about their own processes. All I'm doing, I'm just the messenger, So that CEO or whoever can be mad all he wants, but I'm very methodically, professionally, and objectively relaying information. Don't get too much in your feelings about stuff. Another thing I would say is CYA. I mean, cover your ass. Make sure you document everything. When they tell you to do something, document it. That means that could be email, by the way. It could just be email. Like if they said, your manager said on the phone, they call you and say, okay, look, we have this plan of action, a milestone. This thing has to go out to everybody. Make sure that this and that and A, B, and C is done. And that's it. They click, hang it up. Then you need to create an email of everything, summarize everything they just said, and then send it back to your manager. Right. And the reason why you're doing that might sound, from the manager's perspective, they're going to be like, wow, this person is articulating everything I just said. I appreciate that. But from your perspective, you're doing CYA. You're covering yourself because now you've documented everything they told you to do. So they can't add anything to what they just said. And if they do, you can be like, well, you told me to do A, B, and C. You didn't tell me to do Z, Y, X, and B, so you're documenting everything so that you have a record of what you've done and what they've told you to do. Because what a lot of times as an ISO, what they'll do is get very political. And this is why a lot of IT guys don't like doing this, because it gets political. People get in their feelings about it. And I'm telling you, cybersecurity is a very human issue, because it's people who are, it's people hacking other people, it's people making mistakes, it's people getting their data breached because a person hacked into another person's account. It's a very people-oriented problem. So that being said, we have to deal with these issues, and we need to write everything down. And when they tell us, email is your friend. Use email to document what they're saying to you. That way you can keep a record of it, and they don't come back when things get very political and say, well, didn't I tell you to do X, Y, and Z? And you can be like, if they told you that, you need to follow through with it. But if they told you something that's out of pocket and they didn't tell you that, then you have a document saying, no, on March 15th, this is what you said. Here's the email. So let's get this done. So those are my two biggest things, is that don't take things personal. Use your emotional intelligence. Be patient, be kind, see things from their perspective. Another thing would be document everything, CYA. And those are probably the main things I would say, that besides the resources of NIST 853, NIST 37. And if you were in a different industry, if you were in PCI compliance, I would I would point you to those references. If you were in the hospital, doing healthcare stuff, I would point you to some HIPAA references. You need to know your industry to do GRC. So those are I hope that helps, Alani. Okay, let me see. Navi says, Michael says, Navi, what do you do for yourself? Navi's the man. That's Navi's job, to be the man. All right, let me see what I got going on here. Let me see if there's any other questions. My intentions on this one, guys, to be honest, was to just do a live about the plan of action and milestone process, because I got so many questions back to back about it, and I'm actually struggling with that right now. Not struggling, but I'm at my job. I'm currently going through POA&M stuff, and it's just typical POA&M stuff. So I thought I would talk about it. Let me see if there's anything else before I let you guys go. It wasn't my intention to kind of open up topics, but working for DOD. Okay, awesome. If you're are you working for any branch? You don't have to say it, but if you're working for any particular branch, then another thing I would advise you to do is look through their actual policies. Like Army, for example, has AR 25-2. Read through that one. You can just kind of skim through it to get an idea, but you'll see that document links directly to the documents I just showed you. And then Air Force has, oh man, I can't remember, 31-101 or something. I can't remember what it is. I haven't worked for Air Force in a long time. But each branch of the military, even DISA, they have their own, I don't want to say flavor of NIST, but they have their own policies that will reflect. It has their own like acronyms, which is very annoying actually. So the Air Force has their own acronyms, Navy has their own acronyms, Marines have their own acronyms, and it's all pretty much saying the same stuff, but they're in their own language. And then they have different roles. The roles are all named differently. It's very annoying because they're all using NIST 853. And they're using NIST 837, NIST 853. So for that reason, I can go to any branch and I know exactly what's going on. Like I know exactly. I'm like, oh, okay, this is this control, this is that. Oh, this is the plan of action milestone. They're calling it some ComNavMar POA&M 511. It's a POA&M, right? But they're calling it some Navy something. So that's the great thing about AR 25-2. Yep, that's the one you want to read right there. But another thing is NIST 853. And if you ever get out, if you want to expand on your knowledge base outside of the DoD, then the NIST 837, 853 is the way to go, because here's one thing that surprised me when I start working outside of the Department of Defense is that every federal agency and government department all use NIST 837 and 53. All 100% of them. There might be a couple of exceptions. And then also outside of the Department of the federal government, a lot of them will rely on the NIST cybersecurity framework and the NIST 800 controls. So yeah, there you go. And once you do this work, man, there's so much work out there. You're not gonna have to scramble for a job or anything. Let me see. Leon Taylor says, thank you for the nuggets you've dropped this evening. I'm looking to pursue a role as a ISO someday. What do you do right now, if you don't mind me asking, Mr. Taylor? Because you might be in a better position to go in another direction, but definitely ISO work and really GRC stuff as a whole is pretty lucrative. I mean, it pays pretty good. It's really stable. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I'm not going to lie to you guys and say I make $200,000 a year or anything like that on a job. Maybe combined with all the stuff I do, but not on a job. I have not made that much money, but I know of people who have done that, and all over TikTok, all over social media, they're like, oh, I make 400,000, I make 300,000. That's not me. I'm just telling you the truth. But what I will tell you is I'll make like 130, but it's very stable. And even if this job loses their contract or whatever, I could have a job in days if I want to, because there's so many jobs out here for doing this kind of stuff. So ISO work is very, very, it's there's a lot of jobs out here for what I do. And that's why I'm telling everybody, as many people as I can, about it. Is like, it's recession proof. And Leon says, just transitioned into IT help desk. Oh, wow, that's great. So I would say, Leon, like, and if anybody else, for Navi to everybody else, you want to give Leon some advice, let me just give you my 2 cents. First of all, this is a great career field to get into. Put a little bit of time on the help desk, and then what you want to do eventually is specialize in some field. It doesn't have to be cybersecurity. I just talk about cybersecurity because that's what I specialize in, but it can be networking, it can be in programming if you like, it can be in cloud. Cloud's pretty hot right now. It can be in AI, like AI prompt engineers. I mean, that's crazy. Look that up, Google that. So there's a lots of things that you can actually specialize in, but the reason why I say specialize is because once you start to specialize, that's when the real money starts. When you specialize in this or that thing, whether it doesn't have to be cloud, it doesn't have to be cybersecurity. I'm not saying anything in particular. I could tell you a couple ones that are hot right now. Cybersecurity is not going away. Cloud technologies is on fire. Anything dealing with AI, the stuff that I'm mentioning are probably the most hot, but you don't have to do those things. You can do networking, network engineer, you can do software engineer, whatever, but specialize in something, and that's where the real money starts coming in. But congrats on getting your foot in the door, because a lot of people contacted me looking for just that, and it's one of the hardest things to do, to be honest with you. All right, let me see what else is going on here. Just some conversations happening, and this tells me that what I really need to do is I really need to get more into like the chat aspect. Would you guys recommend that should I do Discord or should I do a Facebook group? What do you guys recommend that I do? Any preferences? I don't have a preference on on either one. I hate Facebook, and I'm not super familiar with Discord. I mean, I've used it before, but oh, there's some advice for you, Leon. Go ahead and get your Security Plus. Yeah, that's a great advice. Security Plus is great. Discord, JP. Okay, so I got somebody saying use just Discord. Any other suggestions? I'm gonna start so that when I'm not on lives, we can continue to chat and talk throughout the day, or if somebody needs advice, or I can post the jobs. I have a newsletter and I send out jobs, but I get so many that it's not practical for me to send them all out in one place. So I'm thinking about, if I do it on a group or Discord or something, I can just start posting them all on Discord, in like a Discord channel or a Discord server, and then post all of them on or a group or something, or maybe both. Which one do you guys recommend? I got Discord so far, and I got thumbs up for Discord. Another one, live call. Probably I could do that on Discord, so that's good. Where people can call you 1 minute per person. Yeah, maybe on Discord I could have people jump on calls. Any suggestions? Discord is the only one I'm getting so far that I should spend my time on. Any other suggestions here? Anybody? Should I do Facebook group? Can I get because I have a Facebook group. I can do that. I can actually do both, but what I like to do is just focus on one, build it up, and then have everybody doing both, but focus on one, because otherwise I'm doing too much. Discord. Okay, I got 2 Discords. I mean, with Discord, we would have to be able to do like live back and forth. So that would be cool. Any other takers? Discord is good. Some people are doing Slack. Yeah, Slack wouldn't be bad. The other one is that I see people using is what's it called? What's that one called? I can't remember what it's called. Let me see. Bruce, you could do private consulting if you have time. Some automated bookings are 30-minute calls. Actually, I did that for a while. Microsoft Teams, yeah, that's a good one. I did that for a bit. Like I took this. I started in the summer. I took like 4 months off where I was just doing my business. I was just doing these. I was doing back lives every day, and it was cool. And then I started taking calls, and it it's cool. It's cool to do lives, but what frustrates me about the calls, the call, not lives. What frustrates me about the calls is that people are asking me the same question on the calls, and the reason why it's frustrating is because if I do a video like this, like today, for example, I did it on plan of action and milestones, right? So literally, a bunch of people just asked me that. And I'm like, I can either do one-on-ones with 10 people, or I can do a live where hundreds of people will see this. And it's kind of like people will pay me for my time, but I'm trying to do maximum impact, if that makes any sense. It's frustrating to me that I'll do 1 hour with a person, and then that person gets the benefit of what I just said. But I could have done that with 1,000 people, and I would have had much more of an impact on like 5 or 6 people who will actually listen to me. Like 5, rather than one person who paid me, I can do this. I can talk like this, and out of 1,000 people who will eventually see this video, I'll get like 10 people who it'll impact their life forever. There'll be 10 people who will watch this video, and something I said will change their life. But I'm not saying that I won't do it again. It's just that was something I wrestled with. I'm like, damn, I just gave this person like drop some bombs on this person, but I could have released this video to half a dozen people and got a more of a, I don't know. I might still do it, but yes, to answer your question, I've done consulting calls, and I still might do them it's the job for me right now. Honestly, it's my job. Like I'm so drained from my job that to do 15 one-on-ones is just like, I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. I'm too drained. But when I was off, when I actually was just doing this full time, I was doing lives a couple, like maybe once a week or something like that. I have an approved COE via VedTech. Where can I get the best training for CISSP and CMMC? Okay, can anybody answer this question? Anybody? This question right here, this one right here. Anybody have any kind of? I've got a couple CISSPs who are watching me right now. Do you guys have any kind of suggestions for this person who they want to know where is the best place they can get a CISSP and CMMC training? CISSP training. For me, the best CISSP training that I got was by just buying a book, like the official guide, and then going through that myself and just studying the book. That was my best training. I took notes on it and then studied my notes. And I know that's not what you want to hear, but outside of that, maybe if you were going to a college, which is going to take you way longer, and then they had a boot camp inside the college where you get a degree and you get the CISSP, that's probably the best. But to be honest, like if you already have a degree, then just save your money and just go buy a book, study the book, and then take the test. And then as far as CMMC, what they're really going to be looking for is experience. And for that, where would you get experience? For training, you can just publicly available stuff you can do for training, but boot camps cannot cover enough detail. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not into boot camps, to be honest with you. So if it's a boot camp, I would do. The only way I would do a boot camp is if it's involved with a college. Like I'm getting a degree, and then they happen to have this side course where you. That's why I would do that. But Navi says, CISSP, read the book and do at least 3,000 questions. There you go, right there, man. There you go. This man right here knows what he's talking about. This is exactly what I did. I read the book, I took the notes, and I took thousands of questions. I took so many questions. They've got places where you can find questions. Like they have a database of questions that people go on there and add questions that they're not from the test. They're not exactly not supposed to be exactly from the test. People just put them in this database, and then you just read those questions. And after a while, the questions start to sound repetitive because you've read them 15 different times in 15 different ways. And then you start to get an idea of a pattern of what you're going to witness when you take the test. So some idea, not exact. It's not going to be word for word what you saw in the test, but it's going to have examples of what you could see on the test. Because there's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different iterations of the test. They don't have one test. There's like 4 or 5 of them. And you're going to get one of those tests. So if you read 3,000 questions after you've studied, you need to study first. But after you study the book, take 3,000 questions and then just read them over and just go over until the point where you're having dreams of the questions. Like when you sleep, you're like having CISSP questions. You're like, oh, I had a nightmare, and then you wake up and you're like, damn, I got to take this test. Okay, so let me see here. Yeah, congrats, Michael, on your CASP, man. CASP is no joke. The CASP is no joke. So congrats on that. Let me show you. Security. If we go to the security, I love going to the site right here. Security certification progression. So I'm going to Google and I'm typing in security certification progression. And let me show you my screen. I just typed in security certification progression. And one of the first sites to come up is, where's this dude's site at? I'm looking for pauljeremy.com. I don't know who this guy is, but holy crap, I love this site. Yeah, so this has all the certifications. And just to give you some context, CISSP is here. As you go up on this chart, it's higher and higher levels of certifications. So as you go to the bottom, those are lower level certifications. So to give you an example, to give you some insight into this. So the bottom certifications are, let me give you one, ITIL Foundations, which is like it's a question. It's a test with, I think it has 20 questions, very easy IT questions on it. And then another one at the bottom here is, let me see if I can find another one that I recognize. The only one I recognize is ITIL Foundations, which is a pretty good entry-level certification. Because believe it or not, it's actually pretty marketable. I see CC on here. Oh, wow, look at that. Did they put CC on here already? This dude is no joke. Is that what that is? Yep. Certified in cybersecurity is on here. Look at that. It's the CC. And you put it down here at the bottom. Anyway, so the ones at the bottom are the lower level certifications. And as you work your way up, these are higher and higher technical, like all the way from beginner to expert, all the way up to these ones up here that are, you rarely see anybody with a GSE. You rarely see anybody with a CCIE that's up there. CCIE security, that's pretty rare. ITIL Master, $4,000 certification. And then the CISSP concentrations are up here. Those are upper levels, very focused certifications. And then the CISSP is like right here. It's upper level, like expert. The bottom level of expert is where CISSP is. And then if you go middle tier, like above middle tier, is the CASP. The CASP Plus is a pretty good certification. Pretty good. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, it's on the same level as CISSP. Whenever I hear it talked about, it's considered on the same level as CISSP as far as what the government will take, regardless of your opinion of what is what, but the government will take either one of these. If you're looking for a high level position, they consider those on the same level. Usually. Let me see if there's other certifications on here. There was one I wanted to check out to see if they had it on here. They have the CC certification. This man is pretty busy on the cert chart. Let's see if, oh, he didn't update the cap. So this should be called hey, Paul Jeremy, if you're watching this, you didn't update this, man. Just to point this out. This is now called the CGRC. It's no longer called the cap. There it is right there. The governance, certified in governance, risk, and compliance is now what this one's called. Pretty cool. But yeah, this is, if you want to see this chart right here to see what, it's a really good gauge on what certification you should get. Just go to Google and type in, well, the guy's name is pauljeremy.com. But you can also look it up by just going to Google and type in cybersecurity progression chart, and you'll see his site. Pretty good breakdown of everything. And then he also maps it by, let me see if I can find the other thing he's got. It's pretty cool. He got another breakdown that looks at, where is it? Oh, he might have taken it down. He had this other one that broke down the NIST cybersecurity. Oh, here it is. So this is the cybersecurity workforce framework that's used by the government to figure out what it does is it focuses on different categories of cybersecurity. And he's broken it down by, and I wish I could make this bigger for you guys, but I can't make it bigger. Can I download this? Nope, I can't download it because I want to make this, I want to enlarge this so you guys can see it better. But anyway, so the red up here is securely provisioned, which is securely provisioned has your assessors in there. It has your test and evaluation people in there. It has what else? Research and development in there. And then your green is operate and maintain, which is your information system security. No, this is operate and maintain is your knowledge managers, your database administrators, your system administrators, people who are maintaining the network. And then blue is oversee and govern. This is your information system security managers, your CIOs, your CEOs, people are managers, cybersecurity managers, stuff like that. Then you've got protect and defend, which is cyber defense analysts, your security analyst, your cyber defense analyst. Then you have analyze, which also has some analysts in there as well. Analyze has a lot of your intel people, but it also has target network analysts, your target developers, your threat warning analysts, and also cybersecurity analysts as well. Then you have collect and operate. This is 100% intel guys, like people like cyber operators. And then investigate your forensics, data forensics people, and people on CSI, stuff like that. So that's your chart right there. And it's a breakdown, has all the different jobs and all the different categories in there. And then it has price ranges. If you look up here, this little ticker that goes across goes from anywhere from 80 to 70,000 to 220,000 and above. And you can see that the guys in blue have most people that are over $120,000, because those are your CEOs and things like that. So this is a pretty good chart. Pretty good stuff. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate everybody who came. I had no intention. My intention was just to teach and then release this later. But I was looking. I was like, oh crap! I'm live. So I just okay, I just rolled with it. But all right, guys, thank you so much. I've got another video coming out, I think tomorrow. And I'm gonna have more lives coming out and put them out as much as I can, just to kind of continue the conversation. I see you guys telling me that I should do Discord. Maybe I'll do that so we can continue the conversation at all times. That would be really cool. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. See you tomorrow.